ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the discussion of Lord of the Flies. This is going to be great. Believe me, this is going to be great.
I have this wonderful theory. Also, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Everybody enjoy it, and if you don't enjoy it, well, actually, we don't have a reprisal for that yet.
I have a bad chair, so it's gonna be loud.
Okay, we're just gonna be making noise the whole time. Do you hear me swooshing back
Yours
and
is
forth?
fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I got the good chair. I got the captain's chair.
You got the good chair because it's not covered in cat hair.
Yeah, well, I mean, our producer kind of shits all over. I mean, sheds all over our stuff.
Shit.
So
It's the same thing, really.
Yeah, honestly. All right, so I guess I'll just start off at the beginning of the book. Logically, that's where we should begin.
Chronology, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the cool thing about the book. It doesn't really tell you all the details all the time. So they actually just wake up in the forest on this island. And you kind of start to figure details out over the time. So essentially what happens is these boys were like flying either from school or some sort of like military training. And they're like, I don't know, maybe 12 and under. And they're flying somewhere and their plane just crashes on this island.
So you don't know that until later?
No, you only figure out through clues. Like there's a big scar through the forest where like the plane crashed and like ripped up all the trees.
Because the movie, which is not that good, just like immediately shows a crash plane. Like I remember it being like,
yeah, it's probably like 2 or 3 pages into the book because it starts off the boys don't even have names. Like there's the fair-haired boy, the fat boy,
I remember that,
and the ginger boy with freckles. And like after a while, they obviously start to develop names. But for the first little while, the combination of that and the fact that the author doesn't always specify who's talking. Like there will just be 4 or 5 quotations in a row, and it'll be a conversation, but it won't say like "said Robert," "remarked John." Like it just puts the words out there.
Just the words.
So you have to kind of assume where they go, like whose mouth they come out of.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
That's an interesting tool. When was this written?
That's a good question, actually. Yeah, I should have looked that one up.
I figured you had a list of stats too.
I think it was in like the 40s or something like that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, his 100th birthday was within the last decade.
Hey.
Yeah. William Golding is who wrote this.
Huh.
Yeah, apparently he wrote a bunch of other stuff, but I haven't really heard of most of them.
Anything famous like this?
No, not that I recognize. Definitely nothing like Lord of the Flies.
Oh, this is bringing memories back. I'm reading upside down what you have written there. Ralph, Piggy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the fair-haired boy and the fat boy.
Piggy,
that's his name.
Kind of dooming your child by naming him that.
I don't even remember if Piggy had a name before that.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I remember. So he says to Ralph, or Ralph asks him like, "What's your name?" And he says, "Oh, I don't care what you call me as long as you don't call me what they used to." And he's like, "Well, what they used to call you?" And then he tells him. So it's one of the I know
stupid kid.
It's funny because Piggy's a smart one, and yet that was just like not a smart decision.
I guess
at all.
maybe it's supposed to demonstrate that he's a trusting individual.
Yeah, too trusting.
Yeah, don't call me that shit.
Yeah, so they land on this island, and apparently the plane like split in half, and the section with all the adults just landed in the ocean.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's like they figure out really quickly that they're the only ones there. It's like the kids.
Yeah.
So Piggy and Ralph are just kind of trying to figure out what the fuck to do. Because, I mean, they were just in a plane crash. They don't even talk about, like, any of the trauma these kids were through. Like, imagine falling out of the sky over ocean. But anyways, they find a conch. And I guess Piggy knows that you can blow into it because his aunt had one. Like, he's always talking about his aunt and his Asmar.
Oh, yes, his Asmar.
Yeah, which is asthma for anyone who hasn't read the book. That's that's actually like a consistent theme. Sucks to your Asmar every time he says asthma.
Oh, do they actually say sucks to your Asmar in that?
Yeah, it says sucks to your Asmar. Yeah, that's the line. It's probably like 6 or 7 times.
Was it was it written wrong, or is that just how the character's supposed to say it?
Yeah, well, no, the kids are being assholes because he's like I can't run because of my asthma, and they're like sucks to your Asmar. You know? Like it's because it's Piggy and everyone's trying to pick on him.
Kids.
Yeah. So he blows this conch, Ralph, the fair-haired boy. He blows this conch to try and like signal everyone. He's like, well, if they hear us, they'll come running. And they all gather like on a platform, and no one obviously knows like what they're supposed to do. So being kids, they're like, okay, well, we'll elect a chief. Like is it? Yeah, it might have actually happened later. I think at this point, honestly, all they knew was that they needed to like assess the situation because they didn't even know if they're on an island. Like they're just on a beach. They don't know,
okay.
like could be a tiny island, could be a peninsula. Monster Island is actually a peninsula. The name is very misleading.
Okay, now that we're off topic, long live the chief. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, long live Ralph the Chief. So there's like 8 of them, I think, 8 or 9 of them who are actually like a part of a choir. So they're all like dressed in the same stuff. They have caps on, they have like capes and like the same clothes.
Did they become a gang?
Well, that's the thing. They become the hunters after a while. But it's kind of interesting because they're the only ones that come in as a group. All the rest are individuals.
That's really strange that the choir boys became the strong ones.
Well, they're the oldest. Most of the choir ones are the oldest ones, and then Jack is the leader of the choir, and he's the only one with a knife. So it's like really obvious, like a pocket knife.
None of this made sense to me when I was a kid, but it's all coming together.
So I'm really enjoying reading these because you miss so many of the little things as a kid, and when you're trying to rush through a book and just get enough of it to write a report, you totally miss the point.
Well, you're also forced.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of shit. That's
true.
It's a totally different podcast. Though.
Like, yeah, I know. Well, because I wanted to read this, so yeah, you pick up on more. But what happens is they all decide, like, we got to explore, so a couple of us will just go and figure out if this is an island or not. So they go climbing, and, like, it's actually kind of cool because this is the part where it gives, like, a description of what the overall island looks like.
Oh, cool.
And, like, suffice it to say, it's an island, and then there's at one end is a beach, and at the other end is like this big rocky outcrop area, and in the middle is a mountain. So that's sort of like the general geography.
Yeah.
And they just go to the top of the mountain, and that's where they kind of survey everything. So that was Ralph, Jack, and then this like younger boy named Simon. He's like the youngest kid that's sort of referenced. Like most of the little ones are literally referred to as little uns.
I remember that now.
Yeah, like because there's so many of them and they're like not in the story really, so they're just kind of referred to generically.
Every one of these things that comes back to me, I just remember the portable that I was in.
When you had to read it?
Yeah. I don't know how many countries do that, but in Canada, when school runs out of space, they usually don't build more building. They just erect what is referred to as a portable, and it's just this dumpy, it's like a cabin.
It's a wooden box.
It's essentially a cabin school. I mean, it's what schoolhouses used to be, just a single room.
Modern version.
But they sucked, and I hated being in them, which is really hard to read in a place that you don't want to be with dumb lighting. So I remember a lot of it. I remember thinking the movie certainly brought a lot of things together.
Well, it makes it cohesive because, like, when you read a book, it's over the course of days and weeks. But when you watch a movie, it's like 2 hours. So the whole, like, idea of the story is at least in your head, even if you didn't get the specifics.
Yeah, it's digestible in a movie
a
format. I don't know why I'm sorry, I'm distracting. I keep rubbing my eyes.
I hadn't noticed until you mentioned it. Now you're distracting me.
I'm bad at reading. I've never liked reading. I don't even like. There's times where a video game will give me something to read, and I'll just go, yeah, no. And then later I go back to it and I go, well, that's useful information. Like I really don't like reading, so movies were really important to me. That's why this is an interesting setup, because you love reading, and I despise it.
I don't know if that's actually true, because like I would never read something in a video game, like lore and stuff. I'm like almost never read, and like even instructions I would usually rather skip.
Yeah, part of it is I just think if the game is not understandable without 6 paragraphs, then you've done it poorly. So I just think it's your fault if I don't understand.
Yeah, and it's extra information. But I think the reason I'm willing to read books is that I know I'm gonna get a really cool story out of it, and it's the small things that are the coolest. Like the little things he chooses to think about with these kids on the island. So like when those kids come back, like the first thing they do is they're like, okay, we have to have rules, because that's just what they assume.
Makes sense.
Everyone has to do. So they said, okay, well, the rule will be if you're holding the conch, you can talk. Otherwise, you have to put up your hand, and then someone will give you the conch, and then you can talk. So you have to be holding the conch to talk. So it becomes like this magical, like, freedom of speech item throughout the whole book.
All the time, or just in council?
In the council.
Okay.
Like when everyone's gathered. Yeah, that would be hilarious. Only one person of the whole tribe talks at a time.
This one guy's like waving his arms.
Yeah, one guy takes it across the island, and they're all like, shit.
They throw in the conch, and he's like, tiger!
Yeah. So actually, when they get back and do that discussion, one of the little boys The boy, he's only described as the boy with a birthmark on his face.
He never gets a name?
No.
Oh.
So he sees what he calls the beastie.
Oh.
And it's like...
I remember that now.
He says it might be a snake thing, but everyone... It's so funny that it really shows how much these characters are kids.
Yeah.
Because one, mentions the beast, this little boy mentions it, and then the older ones are like, there's no beast, that's stupid.
Yeah.
They're on an island they've never been to with a forest and, what are known as creepers, which are essentially, the undergrowth in the forest. And,
Creepers?
Yeah, creepers. That's what they refer to, all the vines and that kind of stuff as.
Oh.
So, for some reason, their immediate assumption is, I'd rather not be afraid of this thing, so I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist. I'm just going to assume it doesn't, and that means it will not hurt me.
Well, he describes it as a snake, right?
He said he didn't really know, but he said he saw it, and everyone was like, oh, you're probably, having a nightmare, or, a terror or something. Well, he means a little boy, too. So all the older boys are like, no beast. Beast doesn't exist. It's really funny how they go back and forth. It's almost like a modern debate, the debate about climate change and stuff like that, where you have people just screaming at each other and no one's listening to anyone. That's what the discussions about the beast are always like.
The louder, I've heard that the louder you speak, the more correct you become.
Yeah, well, at least that's how you sound. That's the thing, yeah. Yeah, and then, all the older boys are telling him, yeah, there's no beast, it's not gonna happen, just stop saying it. Yeah, they're like, just stop saying it! It's like, okay.
Maybe it'll go away.
Yeah, maybe it'll stop. And then Ralph, apparently, his father is, in the Navy or something, because he's like, my dad has lots of maps. My dad says the Queen has a room, and in that room there's a map of every island in the world, so, they'll find us. That's his logic. It's great logic.
I like Ralph.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why he becomes the chief. So
he's got a map with every island on it.
So then what else he says is, if the boat's gonna be coming, we gotta signal them that we're here.
Yeah.
So we gotta start a fire up on top of the mountain. And everyone's just like, fuck yes, let's make a fire. And they just start running towards the mountain, immediately. That is the end of their ceremony. Everyone goes for it. And there's no plan, nothing.
I get it. Some people are running one direction, and you just think, I guess I'll run in
Well, that's the thing. Everyone's like, oh yeah, let's build a fire. So they get up there, they pile a shitload of wood onto this fire, and then I guess that's the point when they realize we don't know how to make fire. And that's when Piggy's glasses come into play.
Oh.
That was one of the other really important items on the island. Yeah. Because his glasses, you use them like a magnifying glass, set something on fire, and then it catches. And so they make this massive fucking fire, a bonfire on top of this mountain. And they're still then continuing to pile wood on it for a long time. Everyone actually gets tired because they've dragged so much wood to the top of the mountain.
Oh, these kids.
They're just wasting all of this wood.
Day one?
Yeah. They just got there.
Wow.
So then... And then after a while, Piggy's like, what are you doing? First of all, not only is this fire too big, but he looks, and the area that we're getting wood from is also on fire.
Oh, no.
So yeah, they've set this huge area on fire, and then Piggy goes, where's that kid with the birthmark?
Oh, shit.
And everyone's kind of looking around, and everyone kind of knows he's not there, but no one knows where he is.
Oh.
And he never comes back.
Oh, shit.
So yeah, that's the first casualty. The very first day, immediately.
Oh, and
just must have gotten caught in the brush. All the kids knew, but none of the kids talked about it.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where they all of a sudden immediately realize they're way out of their depth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how it's not answered.
Because no one wants to be the one who's oh, he was in the fire.
No, I mean sorry, is it ever explained in the book where he went?
No, they just keep mentioning it. They're we haven't seen him since the fire.
Yeah, so I like that. There's a lot of director's cuts of movies will answer questions.
They just throw the body somewhere.
There's a re-release of Star Wars where Greedo shoots first, or Han shoots first. He answers the question. It's the whole point of that was that no one actually knows.
You couldn't tell.
Everyone makes up their own answer, and he goes and makes a definitive edition of it.
Yeah, it's extending Inception by 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like. It's being and it fell over. Ha!
Game over.
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah. So once they've done this fire thing, they kind of all realize we need to do something a little more productive. Well, I mean the older ones do. And so then they kind of set people who are going to watch the fire. Like the hunters are supposed to watch the fire at all times, have two guys up there and just like maintain it, put on green leaves, make smoke. But then they start kind of taking to other stuff. They're like, okay, like we need to hunt or find, like, because at this point they've only eaten fruit because there's some fruit in the trees.
Yeah.
And I think someone saw a pig. Yeah, when they went and did their exploration, like on the first day, they saw a pig and they like kind of all hesitated because no one wants to like grab a boar and like
they're brutal creatures.
So I think it might have been a young one, but ultimately they knew there was pigs there, so they start hunting and they also start making shelters. Shelters is a loose term.
This is day 1 still.
This is probably like now going into day 2 or 3. Like
okay.
At this point everything becomes really blurry because they don't have like any calendars or anything.
I like that.
It's just like a lot of series of it was night, it was day, it was night. And stuff happens at both times of day, obviously, because nighttime on an island, where this is actually the funny thing. I always picture this whole book illuminated. So even the night scenes where like they're sitting around talking at night, like I imagine brightness because I'm logical, so I just assume there'd be a fire there. But they never keep a fire down at their camp until like the last quarter of the book.
What?
So yeah, they live like 2 or 3 weeks where they sleep in total utter darkness.
Whoa.
Yeah, because I don't know, I guess no one thought of the idea of bringing some of the fire down or creating another fire there. So they have no fire, like they just live in daytime and then darkness.
That is so strange.
Yeah,
I don't remember. There's so much of this I don't remember. I'm getting like tiny bits and pieces. I remember the glasses, and I don't remember the fire. I don't remember the kid going missing. I remember the beastie. So is the beastie the boar? Is that what that's supposed to be?
Well, the beastie is actually a really complicated story.
Oh. Is that going to be for later? Did I skip ahead?
Yeah, we'll be coming back to that.
Okay.
We'll get back to that.
After these messages.
All those little things, though, I find are super important. Like the one thing that he mentions early on, and I thought that's a great point. Like Ralph was talking about how so many of the things just weigh on you. Like you're always walking through the jungle and without shoes or with like old worn down shoes, right? So like you constantly have to think about where you're walking. So sometimes you'd walk on like the wet part of the sand in the water, like where the tide is coming up and going back, because it's soft, so you don't have to think about where you're walking. You can just walk forward.
Yeah, and like until you get stung by a jelly.
Which one is that? Man of War? Yeah, Portuguese man of war, jellyfish.
Is that what it's called?
Those are the ones that kill you.
Man of War?
Man of War.
Man of War?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like all 3
separate?
words. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Portuguese man of war? I think something like that.
Such a strange animal.
Well, and the other thing is they're only eating fruit, so all of them have diarrhea.
Oh.
Right? Because they have no other food source, and they're probably not drinking a ton of water.
Yeah.
Because there's like a lagoon where they have fresh water, but they bathe in that too, so it's not like...
Ooh.
Yeah. And there's coconuts, so they'll probably be drinking the coconut milk, but they're also using the coconuts to store water. Like whenever they have it.
Those are really hard to open for kids, though, right?
Yeah, I don't know how. Like, they must have used rocks. That's the only way. But also, some coconuts, when they fall, they hit rocks or other coconuts and they split. So, I'm sure there's a combination of luck.
Yeah.
Everything is in this book because they're fucking kids.
Yeah.
Right? So, they're mostly just stumbling upon stuff and just thinking, like, what are we going to do about it? That's actually, like, he's really descriptive in this book. The one thing he says is, like they're always getting sunburned because they're always like forgetting about their shirts or just straight up not having sunblock, and they're on like a tropical island. So he describes the sun as invisible arrows of sunlight. And I thought that's like pretty appropriate. Like imagine being sunburned full day and then getting up the next day and being in the sun all day.
Yeah.
And like that would be pretty crazy. Yeah.
That'd be brutal.
Actually, that's like the point at which they start to do the masks. Like, you know how that's I don't know if you know, but that's a big part of this book is like how when you use like war paint and masks and things like that, it kind of disconnects you from your identity.
Yeah.
So they discover white clay, red clay, and charcoal. So they have 3 colors. They have white, black, and red.
And they put it on their face?
Yeah, and they use it as face paint. And that's like what they use when they go hunting.
Is that, and it's, I'm guessing this is, might not be using this word. No, is allegory? Is that the wrong word?
I don't actually know what an allegory is.
Maybe it's a, maybe it's like the metaphor or the mechanic he's using to demonstrate their descent. Like the more often the face paint or the more face paint there is, the less of the kids they used to be? Is that what he does?
Yeah, that's what people kept saying, right? The descent into darkness. That was like what this whole fucking
I actually
book report
just
is about.
came up with it right now. Actually, it was loss of innocence was the word. It was
loss of innocence.
What came up a lot.
I didn't even find that there was that much loss of innocence in a lot of ways. Like they were all still very innocent about everything except their I mean, I guess they were still innocent about things that they hadn't experienced directly.
Yeah.
So for the things that happened, yeah, they sort of grew up, but mostly they were still pretty retarded at the end of the book. They didn't learn a lot. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
Actually, when they do that face paint, that's so they can hunt. That's, I guess, just like one of their ways that they can kind of get into it. You blend away from the pigs. You can't see your skin as well. And they successfully catch a pig. But in the process, he takes his hunters off of the mountain fire. And the mountain fire goes out as a ship passes the island. So, like, yeah, their first chance to get rescued gets missed because, like, they were out hunting for meat.
Oh, that's brutal.
And Ralph's basically saying, like, we don't need meat, we need to go home.
Yeah.
But the other people are like, well, we need to eat something. And he's like,
You really could have just left 2 people on the thing,
yeah,
or one guy.
Thing.
Like,
but
it's not that hard to maintain that fire.
You say that, but imagine catching a wild boar with, like, no weapons.
Oh, that's right. They have to scare it or something like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they just encircle it, and then Jack gets on top of it, and they like all pounce, and then he like cuts its throat or something.
Knife.
Yeah, they only have the knife.
But they're children.
Well, they fashion spears after a while, but that's like kind of later on. I'm pretty sure. So obviously he's like really upset about this, Ralph, and like imagine being that close to being saved and just not having the option. And that's why they should have had one on the beach. I'm just saying, would have made more sense.
Yeah.
It's like that one wouldn't have gone out. Would have been people there.
You're not just saying, you believe in that.
Yeah, so this is actually the point where like Piggy and Jack get into an argument, and Jack, like, I guess knocks Piggy over and breaks one of his lenses. So now like their fire maker is kind of down to one lens, and Piggy only has one eye. So he's such a useless character.
He is.
Yeah, he drives the story, but that's about it. He doesn't actually do anything. He's just kind of there most of the time. Yeah, and then that's actually where they start to go, not downhill, but that's really the point at which all bets are off. Like there's no more we're all one society. Like that's when they start to rift pretty heavily. And there's even some exploration scenes there where like they're going over to like that rocky cliff near the end of the island, like on the other side of the mountain. And the one thing that he describes is because that side of the mountain where the rocks are, that's the side that the waves hit. That's like the windward side.
Oh.
So the sea is so much more tumultuous there. And like the sea rises and drops like 30, 40 feet on the edges of these rocks. Yeah, so there's essentially like a cliff, and then it fills with water, and then there's a cliff again.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a really like strange dynamic, but that's kind of how an island would be, like way out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
You know, their side's all sheltered, so it's nice, and then there's this just barren rock.
So that's where Piggy goes to live?
No. They're going to explore.
Oh, okay. I could have
Piggy,
sworn...
we're sending you to live in the shit house.
Who has the least amount of eyesight? Jagged rocks. You could have sworn does one of them live separately? I could have sworn one of them lived separate from the others.
Well, later on they separate into 2 groups.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But I guess I actually did miss something. The reason they went to these rocks is the 2 people on top of the mountain spotted the beast. The 2 people who were there manning the fire, so they like ran back to tell everybody and like obviously let the fire go out.
Yeah.
But what they didn't know is that there's this scene where a parachuter like falls onto the island and gets like stuck up there. And later on, one of the characters will find out that what's actually happened is this parachuter got stuck on a rock, and then his body kind of fell down and like folded over at the waist. Oh. But then every so often the wind would catch the top of his parachute and pull him up into like a full form, and then he'd fall back over again. So this was like sort of a constant thing that would happen. He would move just a little bit. So for anyone like looking, it looked like this great beast like breathing on the top of the mountain. Oh, right. That's awesome, actually. Yeah, so they're all obviously freaking out, but the people at the beach haven't seen it yet. So then they undergo this like this long exploration. They're like, okay, we'll go look at the big rock because we've never been there. We've never like seen what it's like. And when they go to this huge rock, it's like a fortress. So right at the end of the island, there's this super narrow bridge, and on either side is those like cliffs that are created by the water. And then once you get to the other side of that bridge, there's like a big rock castle. And you can like climb around to the back of it.
Like an actual castle?
No, it's just like a big rock structure, but you're able to climb around the back, and then there's platforms.
Oh.
So it's essentially like a fortress.
That's really cool.
And on top of it are these massive boulders that are just teetering. So like you can tell that they could all just be pushed off of the edge.
I remember the boulder.
Yeah, well, there's actually multiple boulders in this.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're getting there. So at that point, like they search for the beast, they go and they find that the beast is on top of the mountain, and then whatever, they see this thing and they assume it's the beast because they see it at night.
Yeah,
so all they see is that heaving, and they go, okay, well, it's his mountain, and they just leave. They just bolt, and they go back to live like just at their home. And that's actually when like no one knows what to do, so they just kind of pretend the beast isn't gonna come get them. They're just like, we'll just stay here.
Wow,
that's gonna be our strategy. But then I guess this is where the rift really starts. So the hunters go out because they want to go hunt a pig.
Yeah, and
they catch a pig, and then their best plan is they cut the pig's head off and put it on a stick so that they can sacrifice it to the beast to appease it. So it's really interesting because I don't know where they get it from, but that's their first idea is, whatever this thing is, we'll just try and give it something so that it doesn't bother us.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they didn't think that like it would eat the head and be like, oh, I want the rest of this thing. I want the rest of the pig, right?
Yeah,
and just follow them. But that's where the whole Lord of the Flies thing comes from. Because the head on the stick is the Lord of the Flies.
Yes.
And it's covered in these flies, and like so are its entrails, which are in the area. And Simon, the character who ultimately discovers this parachuter dude up on the mountain, he's the one who like he literally gets mesmerized by it. He gets so mesmerized by like the head of this pig that he actually like passes out in place, and then wakes up later like at night.
And is that where they got the idea for? Like that's why they called it Lord of the Flies, because he had some sort of vision.
Actually, the kids didn't call him the Lord of the Flies. He's referred to in the novel as the Lord of the Flies. Like he talks to Simon. There's a conversation between the pig's head and Simon.
So, do the kids at any point refer to it as the Lord?
No.
Whoa.
The only one who knows is Simon.
So only Simon comes up with that name, but no one else.
And he doesn't even say it. It's told to him by the Lord of the Flies.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's really weird.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and Simon's a very strange character, and like sometimes you don't really know what he's doing. Like one time he just like, one time he actually stumbles into this like open patch in the forest.
Yeah.
And then the scene just ends, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, what did he do in the patch? Like, why did he just discover this patch in the forest? That's the same patch that they put the head of the Lord of the Flies later in the book. So for some reason, he's like inexorably tied to this spot before it even happens.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so this Simon kid's some sort of medium, I guess.
Yeah, or he's just
delusional.
Maybe it could be like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe he was the one who suggested that they put the Lord of the Flies there.
That's a good point, actually.
Because he knows about it, and then he puts it there, and then he connects the two dots, thinking it's somehow connected.
It's like there's this great open spot where we can hang it.
He's the one who came up with the name, because it told him, but he actually made that shit up.
Yeah, in his head.
Yeah.
Had to have been. Yeah,
so Simon is the Lord of the Flies.
Probably, yeah. Ultimately, he is. And then this is where, like, the descent into savagery begins. So at this point, like the big ones have sort of separated off from everybody else. They basically said like, we're the ones who do all the hunting and you guys just bitch us out for not doing the fires. So we're going to leave. And they go and they say, you guys are all welcome to come to our feast. But they're essentially outing Jack as being the chief, or Ralph from being the chief. They're saying like, okay, we're tired of you being chief. You don't make good decisions. So we're going to make our own tribe. And the leader of the hunters, Jack, is going to be the chief.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So this Jack, Ralph, Simon, and Piggy are the names we have so far?
Those are the big ones, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah.
Do the other ones have names? Have they been named?
Yeah, there's like Sam and Eric are twins, so they're commonly referred to as Sam and Eric.
Sam and Eric?
Sam and Eric. That's like one word, and they're and then there's like Maurice, Roger, maybe a couple other guys. But yeah, those are the main names. Those are the only ones you like really see. And then some like little kids have names, but they're barely in it. Like I don't even remember what they do. They made sandcastles one time. That was about it. They're not very helpful.
My dad has maps. So far, the only thing I've taken from this is my dad has a map with every island on it.
It's it's true. It's a great book, but it's almost like it doesn't draw scenes out, but it presents them to you in this really strange way. And I think that's actually part of what I ended up liking about it. There's this scene that happens after they've got the pig, they cut the head off of it, and they've stuck it there. So they start having this feast, and like Jack and Piggy both show up, or not Jack and Piggy. Jesus, I can't get these names straight. So now that the group is split, you've got all the big ones, and like most of the people actually went to the feast, and then the only two left are Ralph and Piggy, because they're, like the lone holdouts. They're the other guys. So they decide, all right, well, let's go to the feast. We have to eat meat. Like, we might as well while it's available. So they go and they're given food, and then thunder comes. This like crazy storm rolls in.
This is familiar,
yeah. It's starting to freak everyone out because like they have fire, but you've got this like thunder and lightning coming over your tiny little island. And so everyone's freaking out. So what Jack does is he starts this chant, which is like a chant that happens throughout the book. It's like, kill the pig, spill her blood. Like they just chant all of this really crazy stuff. And they've done this before where someone will like pretend to be the pig and they'll start like beating on the pig and stuff. But like sometimes it gets a little out of hand because there's no one there. Yeah, there's no one there to like make sure everyone's safe. So they're doing this and they're doing this dance and everyone's involved and it's like pitch black outside. And then out of nowhere, Simon, the kid who like passed out in front of the Lord of the Flies. So he wakes up at some point and then on his way back to their camp, he sees the beast, the fucking parachute guy. And he's like, oh my God, there is no beast. It's just a parachute guy hanging from a mountain. Yeah. So he goes back to tell them. But he sort of like stumbles in on this ceremony in the middle of the thunder in the darkness of the night. So they have no idea what he is. They think he's the beast. So they fucking kill Simon. I'm not kidding. In this dance. So like they start treating him like the pig. And they're like beating him and biting him. And they like, they kill him and leave him by the water. He like tries to scramble to get away. And he jumps over these rocks and ends up on the beach. And then the tide just like comes in and takes his body away. Whoa. Yeah, and they're all like...
Is that your leg?
Yeah, maybe. Okay. They all have... Whoops, sorry, people. They all have totally different reactions to this. Like, all the people who were there assumed that the beast took on the form of Simon.
Oh, so they're just making shit up.
Yeah,
like,
so they have no idea what they're doing.
Like, they don't give a shit.
And that's their best assumption. They're like, no, like, it couldn't have been Simon. Like, the beast took on his form. Whereas all the other ones... just pretend they didn't go to the feast. The ones at the other camp, they all knew what happened, but they're just like, yeah, no, we left early. Yeah, we left early.
It's a really interesting, like this whole thing kind of seems like it's supposed to be a commentary on politics, religion, humanity. I mean, pretty much everything, every major part of humanity that's existed as long as we can remember is pretty much talked about in this. Like Simon is like is like similar to a prophet, but he's also sacrificed, and then they do the political thing where they just deny. No, man, I left that early. No, what? Someone died? Fuck.
Couldn't have been.
And then the guys who killed him are like, there was a devil in him. It wasn't Simon. Simon is in the parachute.
Yeah, it was the beast.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. They get little bits and pieces of hints there. They hear like man on the mountain, but like they don't know what he's talking about, so they never really piece it together. So at this point, everyone still kind of thinks there's a beast, but really what you know as a reader is the beast wasn't real. Oh, I mean, obviously it wasn't, but it wasn't real at first. It just existed in the mind of that kid and the kids because they're afraid.
Yeah.
But the fact that something came along that was unfamiliar just confirmed what had been sort of seeded in their mind at the beginning.
Yeah.
So at first it was purely fictional, and then it became semi-fictional, which is why it was so gripping. Because now you actually have, like, pieces of evidence that connect.
Wow.
Yeah.
That really ties the idea together, but having him killed and then they all believe that he was the beast all along or in being inhabited.
Yeah, or like the beast
totally
in
forgot
Simon's
about that.
form. Yeah.
Amazing.
And that's the weird thing. Like now there's 2 people dead already.
Yeah.
There's 2 kids dead. And I don't know how long they've been there because they don't know how long they've been there.
Yeah.
Which is really weird.
Is a good decision to say that they don't actually know.
It's true, yeah, because they would have no idea.
Because adults might come up with like they might be like 4 or 5 days in and be like, "Hey, it's been like 4 days, so I'm using this rock on this rock over here.
Yeah, I'm gonna scratch a notch into something.
Scratch some notches." But kids probably wouldn't think of that. They wouldn't even think that it's important.
Well, that's one thing that I noticed is that they never give a shit about the amenities. Like they're basically just like, "Oh, we'll deal with it." Like whatever it is, they're just like, "Oh, we'll just deal with it." They never like try to, put their houses in a place where it would be less cold or, bring fresh water in a way that would make sense. They're usually just like, it's keeping us alive, so we're going to keep doing it.
Wow.
They don't have a whole lot of innovation or ingenuity, but like you said, they're kids. So you're not really expecting them to be Gilligan.
Even adults on your first day, your first couple of days, you'd keep thinking like, we're not going to be here for a while. Like, don't worry about it. But kids even more so. They'd be thinking like, people are coming like tomorrow. It's going to happen.
Yeah, we'll be okay.
And they've already seen a ship, so they already know the possibilities there.
That's the thing. How often does a ship come around?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the actual like inter-tribe issues begin. So the one tribe, the one with all the hunters, they decide, well, we need fire. Like we can't just not have fire, so we'll just go and steal the guy's glasses. Right? Because like then we have it. But the thing is, Piggy can't even see without his glasses. Like, he can't do anything. He needs to be guided around if he doesn't have his glasses.
Rough.
So, they lose, like, a whole person. And also, like, why can't they share the fire? But that's their decision. They say, okay, we'll go in the night. And we'll just sneak in, grab his glasses, and get out of there. And when they do, like, the other guys, no one's expecting, like, assassins to sneak in the night and steal your shit. Like, it's just not normal in this island. So...
You're right there?
Yeah. Oops.
Sorry, you're getting so excited that you're just like your arms are flying around.
So when they go in to try and steal these glasses, and in the commotion, Ralph, I guess, ends up on top of one of the twins and is just like starts beating on him.
What?
Well, because he thinks he's one of the attackers. He thinks, and then so the twin just like smokes him in the nuts and throws him off. And then later they're talking about it, and he's like, yeah, I beat the crap out of one of them. And then the other guy's like, yeah, I woke up and this one was like kicking me in the face. So I smashed him in the nuts and like threw him off me.
Whoa.
And then they're both just like, oh, okay, never mind. Oops. That's the thing. They have no light. They haven't made fire yet.
Oh, they still haven't figured this shit out.
That was like the first time they had made fire and it went out at night because they didn't, like, no one was up to tend it, right? So they constantly do not have light when it's nighttime. And this is the first time it's mattered. This is the first time someone's like taken advantage of it.
Yeah.
And like that's how the chapter ends, is like you see the other three, you read about the other 3 people walking down the beach with glasses in hand. So they've like successfully stolen the fire.
Wow.
So now obviously they have to go and get Piggy's glasses back because like he can't see. So he's now a useless character, and like if the beast is out there, he won't be able to do anything. Like he won't even be able to run away. So they know they're going to have to go and confront the others, but they don't really know how they're going to do it. So they all grab spears.
The others, I like that.
Yeah, that's there you go. That's a reference right there.
That actually might be what, like, they actually might. No, are they referred to as the others in this book? At any point?
No.
Okay, never mind.
The savages.
Right.
Yeah, they're savages.
Savages.
And like they'll even refer to the individuals as savages.
Wow.
And well, one interesting thing is that before they went, they're like, okay, we'll clean ourselves up because like we want to show them that we're not savages.
Yeah.
And Ralph like chooses not to tie his hair back because he feels like it might look weird, it might look like a girl's hair. Because they have long hair at this point. They, you know, they've been there for however long.
Yeah.
And when they show up to the fort, they've all got spears and like they had to fall. Like Piggy had to be guided using like spear tips. Like they just dragged them behind him and he followed them along because he's so blind without his glasses.
Jeez.
So they get there and they realize that all the savages have tied their hair back because they have face paint on, right? So like it makes them look like warriors, doesn't make them look like women.
Yeah.
And even so, like even if it did, you know, they can't even tell who each other are sometimes. They're so painted up. So it doesn't matter. And Ralph's like, shit, I wish I had done my hair up. God damn. Like, you know, and all of a sudden he's like, man, now I'm the odd one out.
Yeah, when you underdress.
So at this point, Jack, the leader of the savages, is not back. So he's like trying to talk to the people who just, like the people who are there guarding. And they're like, yeah, we can't really talk to you without Jack here. Like, we got to wait for the chief to get back. So then after a while, the chief shows up. And he's very reluctant to give back the glasses, and he doesn't. He's like, no, we're not doing this. And what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So him and Ralph actually get in like a scuffle.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So they're using spears, but they're not trying to like stab each other. They're just like whacking each other like they're bow staffs, for the most part. I think Ralph actually gets stabbed at one point during this whole like engagement. But after all this is going on, Roger is one of the younger like boys. He's part of the savages.
Yeah. And
he's like the co-leader of the savages. He rolls one of those massive boulders from the top, like as his people are retreating. So it's described as it hits Piggy with a glancing blow, which means like off the edge.
Yeah.
From neck to knee.
Oh.
So he gets smashed, but he also gets knocked off one of these 40-foot cliffs.
Oh no.
So he gets hit. Sorry.
Oh shit.
He gets hit by a rock that's the same size as him and then thrown 40 feet down a cliff to his death.
That's brutal.
So he's just gone instantly.
Yeah.
And then the tide comes up and the tide goes back down and that's it.
Whoa.
He's gone. Just forever. So Ralph just bolts. He's like, I don't even know what to do. And at this point, or maybe even earlier, the twins that were with them, the ones that guided Piggy, were captured by the enemy. Fuck. Yeah, like literally captured and just like physically apprehended.
Yeah.
Like they don't have rope or anything, so they're just like holding them down. So Ralph is now on his own. He's just like completely...
Okay, this is what I remember as being the guy living on his own.
Yeah, now he's on his own. I think there might be some little ones kicking around, but like little ones basically just survive off fruit and hide. That's the only thing they do. And like some of them sleep outside. They're almost like rodents actually. And I'm sure they lost some little ones I didn't even mention.
Probably.
They're like, did we lose any little ones? I don't know. I didn't even count them. I don't care.
Like I don't even want to fully pronounce little ones.
Yeah. So it doesn't even matter. So he goes back to the camp. He's just like, okay, well, get out of here. He goes back to the camp and he gets cleaned up, but then he realizes like he doesn't know what they're going to do. He doesn't know what their next plan is. So he actually goes back to the castle because he feels like he's probably safer hiding close. So then he actually climbs up the castle, like to the very top, like up the face of it. And he talks to the 2 kids who were captured because they're like now guarding for the enemy.
Oh no.
They've been like assimilated to the savages. Yeah. So he's talking to them and they're like, you gotta leave. Like, you gotta get out of here. And someone's coming. Like, you gotta go now. But he asks, like, what are they gonna do? And one of them says, Roger sharpened a stick with 2 ends. And that's it. That's like all they tell him. He's like, yeah, he sharpened a stick at both ends.
What?
So then there's never a definitive answer as to what that means. But anyway,
that's really weird.
Yeah,
I don't know what a second sharp end would do.
I don't know, like a spit roast or something. Like, I don't know.
Oh shit!
That's all I can think of.
That's probably it.
Yeah. Sharpened a stick at both ends, whatever that means. So, anyways, so they tell him this, and then he says, I'm going to be hiding, like, right nearby. Try to get them to, like, skip over the area I'm hiding, and then they'll miss me.
Yeah.
But obviously they end up, like, giving him up, because they're little kids, so they can't hold the secret. So the savages know he's going to be close by, they just don't know where. So they drop 3 more of those massive fucking boulders. They're just like, we'll just throw them into the forest. and just maybe we'll get him.
Hopefully we get him.
So yeah, so these huge boulders just go crashing through the forest and take out these like massive segments of the undergrowth. And like he's in what is essentially like a tunnel, like a thicket of undergrowth. It's like almost a tunnel.
Yeah.
And then it just gets ripped open. So now he's like basically standing next to a hallway from these huge rocks. And then he starts to hear it. They've also set the forest on fire.
Oh, fuck.
So they are going after him. Like, there is no more descent into savagery. Like, this is it.
So what was Ralph doing there, sorry?
He was hiding, because he figured if I hide right next to their camp...
No, sorry. Oh. Like, so they're... Why were they after him, though?
Because he's the only other person on the island. And they just killed Piggy.
Oh, so they just kind of have to finish it.
Yeah, plus that, him and Jack never got along. So there's, like, just this...
Fuck.
Yeah. And also, it's like, he's the old chief, right? So if you want to be the chief, you got to take out the chief.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing.
You keep what you kill.
Yes, exactly. And apparently with a stick that has two sharp ends. So yeah, they set this place on fire. They start chasing him through the place. And then... Oh, yeah. Okay, so they start chasing him through the place, and he doesn't know exactly what to do because they're doing this thing. It's called an ululation. It's just like a shriek. It's like a la! Or, I mean, that was just an example. You know, you could also probably go like loo.
That's probably it.
Yeah,
if it's an ulu, yeah.
Or like they're kids, right? So they could have even been like chirping and stuff like that, like just something you can hear long distance. And they're almost making like a fence, and they're moving towards him, making these calls so that they know where everybody is. And then yeah, like trying to advance across the island. So he comes up with 3 plans. He either needs to climb a tree, he needs to hide, or he needs to run. And he knows like one of those 3 is gonna work. Yeah. But if he chooses the wrong one, he's in big trouble. So he says no tree, because like if they find me, like there's nothing you can do. So he decides to like hide underneath this like mat, and it's like imagine shrubs that grow to like 2.5 feet, but then the bottoms of them die because they can't get any sunlight. So he's like hiding underneath this mat, and one of the hunters like looks down and in, so he like stabs them when they try and come in, and then just bolts again. Oh shit. And this is now at the point where like the fire is catching up so fast that he's even trying to like go through his head. He's like, how fast does fire travel? He's like, doesn't fire travel like as fast as a car? And he's like trying to outrun it, and he's like turning corners to try and avoid fire at this point. So the whole island is basically on fire, and all these savages are still following him. And he runs out onto the beach, and there's a Navy officer standing there. Yeah. And there's a ship off in the distance, and like little ships that brought them there. And he's just standing there. He doesn't even know how to react. He doesn't know what to say. And then all the savages start to like filter out of the forest, and the commander goes, are you guys playing war? And then the commander goes, how many dead? Oh, fuck. And then Ralph goes, 2. And he says, 2? 2 of you are dead? Except for there's actually 3 of them that are dead.
Well, he just killed an extra 2 as well.
Well, no, he stabbed him, but the kid lived. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, their spears were just like sharpened wood. Oh, okay. So there's only so much you can do. But he says there's 2 dead, even though there's the birthmark kid, Simon, and Piggy.
Oh, because no one remembers that first kid.
Probably, yeah. Because like the 2 that really mattered to him were like very recent. They all happened within a week, whereas that kid was like maybe a month and a half or 2 months ago. And like no one even, maybe he's around, maybe he's kicking. Yeah. You know, maybe he found a shrub that he really liked and he just never left. But yeah, it's just, that's sort of it. They all like start crying because like that's when reality comes crashing back around them. Wow. That like 3 of them are dead and not going home.
I actually kind of prefer the way that the movie ended.
How'd the movie end?
He's being chased. I don't think there's a fire. I don't remember the fire at all. He's being chased the same way. Piggy dies. He's being chased, and he runs out onto the beach. And there's the marine with a little dinghy, and I think there might be a thing in the boat in the background. But is it Ralph that was running? Mm-hmm. He runs out. He stops. They stand looking at each other silently. This is what I remember. And then Ralph just drops to his knees, and then the movie ends. Like it's almost like, it's kind of like the Inception ending, where it's just like, figure it out.
Yeah,
like,
you decide.
We're not going to spell it out to you. We're just going to be like, you guys went through all of this crazy shit, and then, oh, well, you all could have survived.
Well, actually, there was one question, and the Navy officer said, "Who's the leader here?" And Ralph immediately said, "I'm the leader."
Really?
And then Jack didn't say shit.
Oh.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, like, this is, like, now the moment where you take responsibility rather than take control. So Ralph was thinking, like, I was the chief, I made this happen, so, like, I'm in charge.
He kind of let it go.
Exactly. He let it get to where it got to. And yeah, I like how it ended. I like how they didn't have, like, the boys got on a plane and flew back home and all went back to their families, but lived horrible therapy-filled lives because of the shit that they saw and did.
Yeah. Crazy.
The little boys grew up.
Let's discuss the themes.
Do we want to start with literary devices, or do we want to start with plot devices?
Okay. Well, that was really good. That was a very informative. We haven't figured out how to end these yet.
This was a very informative piece. We talked about the book and all of its aspects. We also went over things that were interesting to us and thought that they applied.
The views described in this video do not match the views of Bros Play.
Yeah, I recommend that people go and read the book because the confusing conversations where it's not telling you who says what are kind of cool because you get to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I liked. It's kind of hard. The vagueness is difficult to do in film. There's like the end of Animal Farm has the animals and the people who look the same because they act the same, but in the movie they're looking at them through like a shitty window. And it's like you can actually still tell which ones are animals and which ones are people. So it
ruins that.
The book version is like these animals can't tell because they're animals partially, and because the animals have become the humans. But in the movie, it's just like almost impossible to do properly. Like you'd actually have to physically change the animals and the people in order to make them look the same. Yeah. So was a couple things.
Ton of CGI.
Oh fuck yeah!
But that's actually one thing that's lost in a movie adaptation of Lord of the Flies is so much of it happens in darkness, like pure darkness. That's actually part of why it's okay that it doesn't specify who says what. Is that there's lots of times you don't know. There's lots of times when it's either just a little one calls it out in the background, or it's just like three people talking at once, or it's pitch black.
I think what you could do is you could maybe take a couple liberties. Oh no, maybe you can just use moonlight. You could have moonlight on like one of the kids' faces, so you see
you could illuminate their faces. That would be the way to do it.
My thoughts are like those moments where you don't know who's talking. You just don't show them. Like you just have the one kid and you have his reactions in an uncut moment.
Yeah, it really should be through Ralph's head.
Probably,
mostly.
Yeah. That seems like the best way to tell the stories from Ralph's perspective. I think it could be done really well. And with the recent, I mean, Steven Spielberg's always really been into making movies with lead roles for kids. And with Stranger Things being so successful and really fucking good, I totally think they could make a good Lord of the Flies movie.
I think it would be too good. I think it would be like super compelling. I think people would be underestimating how dark this book actually is. Like they were there for a couple of months and 3 of them died. Like imagine your kid gets into some sort of an emergency scenario and they either kill someone or die in the process. That has nothing to do with the emergency. Like how fucking shocked would you be?
It's crazy.
But when you read the book, like no part of it seems unrealistic.
Although maybe like part of like the parents might have died as well. That might be the rest of the story.
In the crash.
Is that now they have to go? Now they have to live without parents. Like
as orphans.
Orphans.
Imagine they just stick them all in the same orphanage. Savage orphanage.
And they murder all the counselors and shit, and just like run their own
rocks over
their own orphanage, and they like pretend roll rocks over them. And they kill all the new kids that like turn out to be leaders and shit.
And then when they're done, they light the orphanage on fire.
Yeah, of course, that's how
chase everybody out.
Every movie
doors.
needs to end with a bomb, with everything on fire. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us in this discussion of Lord of the Flies.
Hey.
Hope you enjoyed it, and let us know what you think.
I did.